Welcome to Rules of Villainy, where three new trading card game players quest and challenge their way to the competitive top tables and discuss their opinions on Disney's Lorcana. This is episode 20. This week we'll discuss the latest news in Lorcana, answer your questions, and talk a little bit about the villain of the week. I'm Villain Vince, joined by my two co-hosts as always, Villain Andy and the mayor of Lorcana himself, Brad. How are we doing tonight, gentlemen?
I'm ready to sail these seas, sir.
Anxious.
Arr, matey.
Are we going to be talking bike pirates tonight?
It's like I'm a little kid and I got a Disney trip coming up and I'm like, how many more sleeps? How many more sleeps, Ma? Like, I'm just can't wait.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely not doing the pirate thing because it eventually like veers off into Scottish and like weird territory there. So it's like that's all you're gonna get for this one. But yeah, I'm excited. When this episode comes out, you will all hopefully have Lorcana in your hands for Azurite Sea. And we're on our ways to a whole new metagame, and I'm super excited. Hopefully we will see the end of Diablo and Emerald Steel.
Asterisk. I just want to put an asterisk on that. You said a whole new metagame. Asterisk. Rules of Villainy is not responsible for red, blue, and green steel continuing to dominate the meta for the remainder of the next set.
Anyway, we're here for the rise of Blurble.
Yeah. I think you need to say that faster though, like a disclaimer.
Yeah. Roll it past on the screen really, really fast. I'm just
I think it's actually going to do that. Yeah.
So are you I think most of us are gonna go to do some sealed events this weekend and next week. You know, maybe not all of them, except for Andy, who will probably do all of them. But yeah, you excited?
Very, very excited. I think I got one lined up Friday and Sunday. I won't be able to do one Saturday, but then we got Monday sealed and Wednesday sealed, I believe. So
yeah, Wednesday.
That's a lot of sealed.
I know we got
a lot of sealed, a lot of packs.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hopefully lots of enchanteds. I hope the folks that are listening are getting all the enchanteds they want, or none of the enchanteds if you don't like this, which is totally fine. Both opinions are valid. I happen to like them, but you know, teach their own.
I'm due for some enchanteds this next set because I did not pull a single one in Shimmering Skies. I pulled 5 from Ursula's Return, but couldn't get one this set, so I think it's time to get back on that enchanted train.
No. That's not the way this works.
No,
you get one good set a year. So mine was the first chapter. So I'm due for a really good set of enchanteds. And like Andy, I think you guys had really good luck with Inklings, was it?
I think it was Inklings.
Yeah, Inklings. Really and so if you had really good luck with Ursula's Return, it doesn't like skip a set. So no, you're not due yet. You're not due yet.
How villainous of you! I just want something to look forward to, but I guess that's not enchanted.
You've got that Scar mat to look forward to.
That's true. I got work to do.
How many are you gonna win, Brad? How many are you gonna win?
Ideally 2, 8. So I can have.
The answer is 8.
I want to win one for the championship. Yeah, and I want to get second or trade with the other guy for the non-champion one, but I'll be happy with just one, either one, because and
then a whole playset of the card, right?
Yeah, we'll make that happen for sure.
You need a 5th one to get graded. Send it off, get graded.
Yep.
And then slab, and then maybe like a 6th one to get graded, and then like encrusted with diamonds and put on a gold chain to like wear, to the next set champions after that, right?
That seems realistic. Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Well, with that, we'll go on to the EU Continentals, which we talked about this, I think, last week about how, the side events and stuff, but it is kind of strange that we haven't heard anything about the main event in the sense of how the qualification process for Worlds is going to be, and we're less than a month away. What do you make of that?
So,
And go ahead.
I was gonna say I heard a rumor that they have communication with the people who have qualified for EU. That said, I find it hard to believe that none of those people have shared any of that communication, unless perhaps it strictly said you're not allowed to share this in any way. Which in which case then I would kind of flip, and I think they didn't share it. That seems reasonable. But I think it may have something to do with the NA Continentals because, like you said, qualification and stuff has to match or coordinate. It has to line up with what NA is doing.
Yeah, it would be weird though. I mean, not unreasonable that they wouldn't share it wildly out to everybody, but given that there's like a second kind of chance qualifier, that last chance qualifier, and we do know the details of that, it does seem like weird that you wouldn't know, okay, if I make it through that and I make it to the main event, like what then happens? And not knowing that 25 days out seems a little strange to me. But I don't know. I put a lot of defense on Ravensburger because, I think they've done a really good job with all these events and stuff, but we've known kind of that we're going to have the EU, the Continentals for a long time. They've kind of like charted this out for a long time. So to not, to still be waiting the details for that till the last minute isn't great. I gave a lot of grace with Atlanta and Chicago because we were like a month out and they basically just announced those kind of last minute to us. Obviously I imagine there's a lot of planning that went into that previously to us announcing them and stuff, but we've gotten more details as like time went on for those events. So it does seem a little strange that we're not getting that same kind of information for the people that are participating.
I wonder if it has anything to do with being on the Disney property too, because up until now everything has been at convention centers, and so it's easy for Ravensburger and PPG to plan all of this without any interference from Disney. But now that it is on Disney property, I think that's going to take precedence, right? Because it's a Disney-owned game and everything's got to be up to their standards and all that as well. So maybe there's just some kickbacks that are or some obstacles that they haven't covered, which it's still alarming because, like you said, we're less than 30 days out. But people got to get their travel.
What do you think? Disney's the mob over here, man?
No, you know what I mean, though. But it's a lot different than going to the Seattle Convention Center than it is to go to Disneyland. It's because.
So I don't want to speak for EU fans out there or anything, but I have heard there has been, some discussion that I think whoever organizes in the EU, and I don't remember who, isn't as good as PPG is at planning events.
Throwing shade.
Not throwing shade. Honestly, listen, I don't know. I've never attended. I could totally be wrong on that, and I'd gladly eat my words. But from what I've heard from people that have attended both, or like what I've read, in the Lorcana community that have attended both, there does seem to be, a fairly common theme that the EU organizer isn't as well organized, if you will, as PPG. Whether or not that's true, I can't speak. I've only gone to ones run by PPG.
The company's Fanfinity, I believe.
Fanfinity.
But I wonder if it has something to do with just like the EU in general, right? I mean, Fanfinity is kind of an English word, so it's most likely a English-based company, I guess. And these are all just assumptions, but like, you got to go to like different countries and things to host all these different events. That's maybe they sort of got thrown into it, whereas PPG is like, well, yeah, we've been running events across the US, no problem. And they're like, across the EU, like, I guess we'll see what we can do. And maybe some of them, I know the one they had to split into 2 days, right? That was an interesting obstacle that they overcame in a creative way, in my opinion. I kind of like that. But it just perhaps that has something to do with it.
Yeah, hard to know. Hopefully we'll though find out shortly after things have been settled with the EU that we'll have some concept of what's happening in North America. There hasn't really also been any information about the North American continentals. So hopefully we'll hear.
Is there a list of qualifiers anywhere? Surprised no one has like compiled just a list.
I'm sure someone has, and we just maybe haven't seen it. I'd be surprised.
What, 5 times 16 and then one set of 8? Or was there 2 sets of 8 and 4 sets of 16 for the qualification?
I don't, know what? I don't 100% remember because I always get a little confused about how they allocated qualifications to nationals, and and I confuse them with other prize slotting too. And so, I don't want to say I'm pretty sure you're right that maybe only the top 8 at Atlanta got it, but maybe it was top 16, and I don't want to. I'm a little reluctant to confidently say which one was what because
that's what you do.
I had to look.
I learned
several times.
Just say confidently what it is, and either you're right or you're wrong, and someone will tell us in the comments, and then we'll actually we'll get knowledge and we'll know. So
that's true. That's true. So what are you standing for, Andy? what be the confident one out there? Take the stab for us.
I have no idea.
64. That's the answer.
Tell us in the comments how many people qualified and who are they.
That's a big comment.
Wow.
Well, how about this? Go do all the math, write it all up, make it a Reddit post or a medium.com article or whatever, and then link it to us in the comments, and then we'll also promote it for you because I think that's awesome thing to do, and someone should do that for the community. We're just throwing the ideas out here, right?
Yeah. Or you're welcome to, if you just want to, and you can also join our Discord. We'll have the link below. But speaking of other ways, though, to see us, we've been on a sweeping media tour amongst the creators of Lorcana. So, Brad, you want to tell us a little bit about our first collab that we had? Well, not our first collab, it was our second collab, which came out just recently, right?
Yeah, this past Friday, Lorcana Chats, Chris over there, aka Questing for Lore on the socials, was kind enough to have us. We linked in the last episode. We'll link it again below. Great conversation, great guy. Just kind of, getting to know us and who we are, how we came together, and had a great chat with him. And then you guys just did one this past week, and I wasn't able to make that because I was out of town. How did that go?
Yeah, Andy, you want to tell?
Yeah, we were honored to be a guest on Be Our Guest Lorcana for their Azurite Sea draft review ranking. I don't know exactly what you'd call it, but we went through each of the cards. We got Sapphire as our ink color. So Vince and I went through all the cards with Be Our Guest and just rank them. We, got some right, some wrong. We agreed on some, disagreed on others. That video should be out soon. I think they're releasing them, little by little.
Yeah.
So keep
they're
an eye
doing
out
them by ink
that.
color.
Yeah,
you should absolutely check them out.
Yeah, they've already got, I think, 2 ink colors out, at least as of time of recording. So
yeah, I think two or 3. Steel, Ruby, I know for sure. Maybe there's a third one that was out, but
check them out. Definitely worth it. We'll have a link somewhere in the description.
Definitely, yeah. Have a link down below and in our collaboration channel in our Discord as well, where we're housing all of our collaborations and promoting these other content creators as well.
And what's that?
I said aye, Captain.
And we just did the other night. This episode should come out later this week, I think, with the citizens of Lorcana, Jared and Dan Regal. All 3 of us were on there. And it was a pleasure to be on with them. And we just kind of talked a little bit about set 6, some of our fun things about the podcast and what we love about the Lorcana community. But you should absolutely go check their channel out too. And like I said, Brad, who's up there to me, but I don't exactly remember where he's on the screen when you see me. But he'll put all those links down below. And if he doesn't, just be like, Mayor, you're not doing your job, man.
You speak with your vote for a new mayor.
Yeah.
Citizens of Lorcana was a great show to be on as well.
A lot of fun.
We were in some very prestigious company being accepted to be a guest on that show. They had a lot of great guests on. They almost rival Liam with the number of great guests they have on. So definitely check them out.
Almost. But Liam takes them all, right? No, that's my running gag. We're gonna get him on here though, Liam.
Yeah, let's flip the table here. Yeah,
absorb all of
you on hours.
Yeah. Now we got you,
right? And he's worth like 1,000 guests just in one.
Yeah, by proxy, we get Liam on here. We'll have all the other guests that he's had.
Though, the Citizens of Lorcana was a lot of fun because you get to see how diplomatic the mayor is in answering controversial questions. So you definitely should absolutely 100% check that out. But we got a new segment. So we got Pull the Wrong Lever from the Department of Corrections. So we thank our listener, Megan, who is part of the Rules of Villainy team, who pointed out in our last episode that we made some errors. Like any villain assistant will acknowledge that our errors were incorrect. So let's talk about them. The first one, Andy, do you want to take care of that? That was about the Shida and Lilo.
Yeah, the Tadashi.
See,
there we go. We had three mistakes. One, Vince mispronounced Tadashi several times in that episode and this episode. But we discussed how Tadashi gets the ink from Tadashi comes into play unexerted, and we mistakenly thought that the Lilo ability happened before your ink was readied. So it actually happens in the set phase. So you ready all of your characters, all of your ink, and then in the set phase is when you go through all of the abilities that would happen. Things like at the start of your turn, do whatever, like Sad Beast or Location Lore. And in this case, the Lilo ability would be able to be triggered and put in the bag. So all of your ink would already be readied. So the Tadashi doesn't really help out the Lilo there. That said, still a good card. Definitely drafted.
Yeah, I would agree. And then our second thing that was pointed out was Baymax, which Andy and I went back and forth about. At what point would this card be great? How many inventors would you have to have? And it turns out it doesn't really matter because you only pay one less for him if you have an inventor. So it doesn't matter if you have 1 or 100 on board. It still only reduces the cost by 1, which is kind of a big miss for us. But you know what? We won't be doing this segment all the time as we make errors because, listen, we're human and there's a lot of cards and we're going to make a lot of errors here. But we just kind of wanted to appreciate the fans that do let us know when things are incorrect. And we encourage you still to make corrections all the time. And when we think there's a big one, we'll bring this segment back. But I hope you enjoyed. Pull the wrong lever! And with that, we're going to move on to Constituents Corner with the mayor.
Let me recover from your shouting. Yeah. So the first question this week from the mailbag is from John. He asked, when is scooping the right call? What is the line that separates giving up and moving on from the lost game to manage your time better? Anybody want to take that one?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. Honestly, it's something that you have to decide sort of for yourself. I know that there are a lot of people who have the confidence, I guess you could say, to believe they know when the right time is to sort of give up in a match. Personally, I like playing it out to the end. Whether I'm winning or losing, honestly, I play as long as I can. And I think that's probably the thing I would recommend most people try and do. there is a consideration for the clock when you're playing in a larger event like a DLC or even a set championships where you have, a clock on the games that you're playing. If you're playing a deck that simply takes longer, sometimes you don't really have the luxury of playing a game out. That said, you should always sort of be trying to think 2-3 turns ahead. And while I understand that can be a somewhat difficult thing to do with the complexity of the game when it's later in the game and stuff, and they have a lot of ink to do different things, ultimately, the math for 1 to 2 turns should be easy enough to realize that you have no outs for that situation, and then you may be able to gain 30 seconds to 2 minutes or so back of time by scooping maybe a turn early. But really, you really want to play the game out as long as you possibly can, because there are a lot of very strong things that decks can do even when playing from behind.
Yeah. I'll say play to your outs. That's, ultimately the key of the game is you never know, play to your outs. I will just add, controversially here, there are folks that will take a game all the way to time and to turns and ultimately, can deny the result. And I'm not saying that's necessarily right to do, or, what you should do. Personally, I think maybe there's kind of like a little bit of lack of sportsmanship a little bit. Like if you're going to lose a game, maybe not the best way to win the game is by going to turns. But that is definitely, I think you're right as a player, according to the rules. I may disagree with that, but, ultimately I pretty much agree with everything that Andy said otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. If you see that, if you're counting up their board and you don't have, your deck better than they do, and if you can't think of a way to stop them, what I typically do in that situation, his example when he asked the question was very lengthy. He's talking about red blue just churning through cards, all the draw, getting Tamato out, all this stuff. And what I typically do on the next turn after I see that player do all that stuff is I draw the top card. If it's not a removal, like a significant removal for that Tamatoa or that dime, I scoop, save time and try to go to the next one. It also depends on which game it is. Is it game 1, game 2? But when you don't have those outs in your head, and you're looking at your hand, you don't draw what you need. That's it. It's all how you want to play it out. Like Vince said, if you need to go to turns to salvage some points, but then you go into the sportsmanship aspect of it. So I think if you know your deck, your outs, then when to scoop.
Yeah.
I will also say, I think there's a couple that you brought up a good point. His example also sort of talks to like the flip side of that, where you're not the player considering scooping, but you're the player sort of in the winning position here. Because I definitely get this weird feeling too, especially when I'm playing a blue, deck or a red blue deck, especially where I've got all the cards, I've got the board control, like I'm winning the game, convincingly, but I'm still doing all of the right actions in the right order, right? I'm questing with Hiram, I'm throwing away the item, I'm drawing 2 cards, I'm brawling the only character they just put out this turn, I'm, ice blocking and big Sisuing and this and that. And that seems excessive, right? Like that your opponent could be like, and you don't want to be like sort of the unsportsmanlike person that is just sort of dragging this on, even though you've already won. But ultimately, it is up to your opponent to decide that they would like to concede the match. And I personally think that you should always just continue to play the game to the best and the cleanest ability that you have, even if you personally are thinking like, you're beating a dead horse here kind of thing. You're kicking them while they're down. Like you obviously don't be a jerk about it or whatever, but you continue to play out as much as you can. But I tend to agree with Brad and Vince. You don't have your outs. You're seeing the other person just do an insanely large amount of unfair stuff, and you're just like, okay, it's next game.
Yeah. What I would say in that position too is that players to also be careful, because you can get so far ahead and feel confident. And if you're like me, you might think too far ahead. You might get sloppy with it and actually screw something up for yourself. So don't do that. Play it to the best, like you're still, grinding for it. Even if you're that confident that you are going to win this game, you can still make a detrimental mistake. I'm sure I've done it in the past, and it's possible to do. So
that's right.
So that's my best
advice.
And
our next question.
Next question is from Cody. What's your favorite character in a color you don't actively use on a regular basis?
I will
go ahead.
Take this one real quick. Is that it's for me? It's art. It's the Arthur from, I want to say, maybe Rise of the Floodborn. It's the Emerald card where he's
the vanilla
just a
one?
beautiful card, the vanilla one. I know, it's crazy. Sometimes, I mean, these vanilla cards have amazing artwork, and that's just one of them. I love the artwork on that card. I cannot think of the particular name of the card.
It's Trained Swordsman.
Swordsman.
Mario Oscar Gabriel is the artist.
So you know what I found going back watching Sword of the Stone, I remember as a kid that movie used to kind of bore me, but as an adult I find it really cute and a good movie to watch. Really that card that I saw that artwork where I was like, I want it as a mat. I think somebody in our area has it on a mat.
Megan. Yeah, Megan.
Megan does. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, I love it. I want to get that. And it looks so good. And I hope Ravensburger does what they did with Honey Wizard, and start pushing some of that great artwork that's out there. But yeah, Brad, sorry to interrupt you, Brad.
You were fine. I love that. I realized when I started doing this bit that most of the time I ask the question, I hand it off to you guys. Like, maybe I should start answering, before handing it off once in a while. And the one time that I chose to do it,
Love that. All good.
No. I had a hard time answering this question, especially now with your answer going by artwork, because I bid solely by character and was like, I don't know, and I also play a lot of colors. So Cody has seen me play every color, so it's hard for me to be like, what color is he expecting me to use here? Because I bounce around all the time. But ultimately, what I landed on was the Heroic Outlaw Aladdin from set 1, the Shift. I like that. I like his ability of the lore. Trading. I gain 2, you lose 2. I just never get an opportunity to use him. I always like the idea of a lore siphon deck and something to utilize that card. But all the the more competitive Ruby decks that have existed since set 1 have kicked him out. So I've never really made an effort to make him work again. And that's the one I landed on. I mean, there's 1,000 cards, but that's the one that came quickly and my answer for this question.
Andy?
Yeah, the biggest problem I had with this question is that I'm a man of the ink colors, I don't care what ink color it is. I'll play any deck that is strong and overpowered and will make my opponents weep and go home being all funned out. It's he got to play to win, right? So I do think my least represented ink color that I play is amber, because I'm Ruby Amethyst probably number 1, and then Ruby Sapphire is pretty good too, and then obviously Emerald Steel. You can't doubt the Zan. So I think in amber, I mean, my favorite card is the Rockstar Stitch, right? That is obviously the best art, especially the enchanted one. But I do also really like Lilo, the 1-drop, 1/1 2 lore Lilo. I think sometimes people just sort of sleep on how powerful that really is. And you're like, oh, well, it's only got, 1 strength and 1 willpower. Yeah, but it's got 2 lore. Who cares, right? I'm not playing it to defend or challenge or whatever. So I do really like that card. And if I'm playing Amber, I'm almost certainly playing that card. So
I'm kind of surprised you didn't say Musketeer Goofy. from your old aggro days. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a really good card. It's kind of fallen out of. I mean, it just got like power creeped out of Nani. I think is a better card.
It's another
It's
one.
also a 3/6 and it has an extra lore. That's the same cost.
Yeah.
And the Goofy just
I
has that.
I
weird,
wonder if
like,
some of those will
podcast
actually
movie.
get better, though, if like the Musketeer theme comes back a little bit. But we'll
Maybe.
see if that archetype works. What's our last question?
Last question is from Martin Karp from our Discord. He asked if Ravensburger came to the villains to ban or errata a card from each color besides Bucky, what or who would it be?
All right, let's start with Amber, and we'll go around. Andy, you start first.
I mean, first off, let me say that I'm not in favor of bans.
You answer the question.
I am being forced to answer this.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. They're forcing me against my will.
Objection overruled. Objection overruled. Answer the question.
So I'm just gonna the Rapunzel. Get out of here. Now Amber doesn't get to draw any cards.
Banning it. Okay.
Oh,
all right. Brad.
I could errata. Okay, so let's just errata it and make it 2.
Okay. Brad.
I wrote down Cindy or Ariel for a ban. I don't. But I would probably lean with Ariel, Spectacular Singer, just because of how powerful she is with the song search.
Yeah,
I changed my answer. I changed my answer to Cinderella. That's a better one. Singer 2 instead of Singer 3.
Singer 2. Okay.
Well, she's singing on 2. Is there any 2-cost songs?
That's the point. Yeah, that's the point. She's terrible. Throw her in the bulk bin. Next card.
Do anything. Vince, what's yours?
I would do Daisy Duck, and I would move it from a 1/4 to a 1/3. That's
1/3.
I would change.
That card's completely unplayable. Then it's almost unplayable now. Giving your opponent a card can be really, really detrimental.
Yeah, I didn't say it was
Daisy's
fair.
overrated.
Amethyst. I'll go first here. Knowledge and Wisdom should at least be a 3-cost card, uninkable. You shouldn't add a 2. So it fits in the 2 slot, and you're automatically getting lore. It should be equivalent of having a character on board that you quest with, which would be at a 3 slot. So I think it should be 3 uninkable. But that's because I just hate that card in aggro decks. Brad?
I wrote down Rabbit and Goat. Either one of those. The errata would be get the card when they're played and when they're banished, but not when it's returned to hand. So you could return to hand and get the draw and Goat again and get the lore again, but you don't get it from the return. You get it from play and from banish.
All right, Andy.
That's a pretty good one. I wouldn't ban anything or errata anything in with perfect color. Next question.
I figured you would say that. Emerald, do you want to take it, Andy? Or I'm sorry, Brad, you want to take it first?
Yeah, I will say the same thing I said last night. I will say the Diablo, but the 1-drop, and either ban it or errata it to remove the ability.
Yeah, interesting. I would say Prince John, remove Ward. Andy?
Oh, I want to defend PJ here real quick. What about just giving him ward, but he only gets his ability when exerted, or once per turn or so? Can we appeal the ruling on Prince John? That's not very nice. He
the
just
judge
wants
is
his
spoken.
taxes.
Yeah. Listen. Brad may be the mayor, but as a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Lorcana,
look. I don't. Again, I reiterate that I don't think any card necessarily needs to be banned this early into the game. But because I am a man of the people, we can ban the bird.
All right.
Just straight up.
Ruby, we'll start with you now, Andy.
Do I have to say it? Do I have to pick it? It's
you do.
It's the obvious card.
I know.
Medusa. We'll pick Medusa. That way nothing, quote, dies to Medusa every time.
You gonna ban it, not errata it?
I mean, what do we errata it to, right?
There's no errata for it.
Moving the line.
That's right.
I think it's fine that Medusa exists. I don't know how I would sort of tip it. I guess.
Do you not have your sticker? Dies to Medusa.
I do have a dies to Medusa. I don't know where they are.
Brad.
I didn't have a good one for Ruby. I went with what everybody says. I don't agree with it, but be prepared. You could ban it, which I don't think is a great move, but you could also errata it.
You're not going to sing it?
I'm not tonight. No. I laid down the gauntlet on Citizens of Lorcana. Yeah, we will. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. The other option for be prepared, I put errata must be sung, but there's not a lot of options to do that at that point, right? It's
to be the only card that must be sung. That's really interesting mechanic that you just bring up in general.
Yeah,
cards
that is an
interesting.
interesting.
Sung.
Yeah,
there's every song is also an action. What if a song was just a song?
Yeah,
I kind of like that idea. I don't know how practical it would be, but it is an interesting idea as a mechanic. In the game,
nerf it. The card's already getting nerfed.
But just in general, that song should be sung always because it's the best song in Disney.
Just to be clear for our listeners, you'll definitely encourage you to go listen to Citizens of Lorcana. But Brad says that he can give Baker from Lorcana Villain a run for his money on Be Prepared. So I don't know.
I just know how passionate I am when I sing it.
I tell you what, in the comments below, I want to see, who do you think is going to win that? Is it going to be Baker or is it going to be Brad? And tag Baker, Lorcana Villain, in there.
Let him know that he's being called out.
Yeah,
that this is a challenge.
The mayor of Lorcana.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't even sing Emily hears me singing, but in my car, I belt this song and it's so good. So I don't know that I can. I do know that I do a very good Be Prepared, and I'm prepared to show the world.
Yeah, you're all of a sudden less confident than you were last night. You were significantly more confident with this question.
We will film this karaoke style if we have to. All right, like we're gonna get a Brad, Mayor of Lorcana v. Baker, Lorcana Villain, Be Prepared off. If you will.
This is so great.
Oh boy.
But to answer the question, I'm with Andy, Medusa. All right. Sapphire. We will start with you, Brad.
I have 2 for Sapphire. I went with the obvious one, so you guys will probably have to choose something else. I said Hiram, errata, draw 1, but that's kind of a give me because we saw the error in the application. But
I was going for it again. I was like, wait, what? Did I miss it? Did something happen?
It's on its way to the printer.
And if you guys don't say my other one, I'll follow up with it before we go to Steel.
Cogsworth.
What?
Ward. Get rid of Ward.
What?
I hate Ward. I hate it. I hate Ward. Get rid of it.
Who did you lose to a league this week or something with a Cogsworth? What? He's not that bad.
Andy. No, my issue with Cogsworth is that he gives resist to other characters, and so
you love resist.
Oh, and resist is so overpowered these days. So obviously, Cogsworth has become the new best character. Ban the clock. Hashtag ban the clock.
You know what? Honestly, I walked into that. That was my fault. That was totally my fault. But Andy, you said dime.
Yeah, dime. We'll do dime, and I think it just needs an errata. I think we actually talked about this before when we had the dime on as the villain of the week. Keeper and then throw it away when you use it. Maybe come into play exerted. Also we can just ban it. That's fine. Like at this point, I've already thrown my morals out the window. We're just slamming the ban hammer left and right. Let's next card. Ban.
All right. And
I also said Quill.
What
did I say with Quill? Yeah, enters exerted or that's all I put. Errata enters exerted.
Fishbone Quill is another one of those that's like, so
the ink enters exerted, not the Quill. Sorry.
Yeah, Fishbone's so last year. I would ban it last year, but now I'm like
it's not cool anymore.
Yeah, Fishbone's not that big a deal no more.
You're just bullying an uncool kid now.
Yeah. Okay, boomer. Fishbone's so overpowered.
It is.
We're gonna move on to Steel, and my answer here is Lawrence. And honestly, the big reason why it's Lawrence is because I often forget that it has 4 strength on it when I'm trying to crash into it. And so I was like, why does it say 0-4? And like I have to know that the card text says that it has 4 strength on it.
Is your errata, Vince, so that the card has one of those like hologram things to it, so that when you like move it slightly, it says 4, but then if you look at it the other way, it says 0.
No,
right?
it's
like
just
that.
turn the text of the card upside down so he can read it from the other side of the table.
He wants Lawrence big text version, close text.
No, I just think that I actually think this card, although probably it wouldn't be as good, right? So it wouldn't be played.
Yeah,
but is that it just would be the same as say like a beast. It gets its strength when damage, because then it has some sort of indicator on it that it has additional strength to it. I just, you're so used to when you're looking at a card on the board and like Lawrence is just kind of out of place in the game. Like, is there another card like Lawrence in the game? That's
Razul.
I should say.
Razul. He doesn't get played as much or at all, really, I guess. But there's a couple other, and I do think Lawrence has like a. I don't know if they did this on purpose. I'm gonna assume they did because the developers of Lorcana are amazing, and Ravensburger does a wonderful job, and they should absolutely come on our podcast and hang out with us sometime. But I am gonna say, like, having 4 strength versus Challenger 4 is like after the introduction of Medusa is night and day, right? Like, and the more we see Ruby get these, Ruby is targeting the strength, Steel is targeting the willpower. The more we see those where it says you get this amount of strength versus you just get challenge or something, becomes very, very valuable.
Honestly, I think actually that is probably the errata if I were to make with Lawrence, is to give it that,
Challenger
it has Challenger strength, Challenger, because that's honestly like when I see it played is how I kind of view it and stuff. And I always have to remember internally that like, yeah, I agree. Like, right. Would I actually do this if I had the power to? No.
We're sending all of these cards to an early retirement. Okay. None of this is good for any. None of these make it out the other side playable.
Listen. We're the villain evicting Mr. Fredrickson from his house right now. I'm over here. Andy, what's your
in Steel? I would probably. I don't know. Like, I guess, Storm, Let the Storm Rage On is a pretty strong card. The fact that it's a song might be where I would errata it to maybe make it an action. You have 1 cost, 2 damage, fire the cannons, but it's uninkable. Then you have 2 costs, 2 damage, inkable, ba-boom, but it also gets that location, which but is still.
Would you
something.
Still have it replace itself?
Right, it would still replace itself. So 3 cost, uninkable, 2 damage, replaces itself, or your option is 3 cost, inkable, 3 damage with smash, but it doesn't replace itself. So that feels like it's a little. The fact that it's just like that whole curve of 1, 2, 3. The fact that one is a song kind of definitely sets it apart from the others, and you just kind of think, I don't care that it's uninkable because it replaces itself, and I can sing it. So,
Brad?
I have 2 here. Actually, I have 3, but one's...
No, you have 1. You pick one.
If that's the case, then I'm going to pick the funny one. And that's not even funny. It's real. Gantu from set 1. Citizens will say, glorious Gantu, justice for Gantu, errata him to a 4 cost. So he's playable because at 8 cost.
Wow, making a card better. I love it. Actually,
at 8 cost, what are you doing with? I'm sure everybody for the last year, or at least for the first set, has talked about this card being so bad. But why is it 8 cost and its ability is to not be challenged by cost 2 or less? It doesn't. I don't know.
And it's not even shiftable either. So
Yeah.
To put it into perspective, that new card, Mr. Big, which, by the way, awesome card, awesome character. If you haven't seen Zootopia, watch it. Great movie. Can't wait for Zootopia 2, right? Isn't that supposed to be coming out?
Yep.
Yeah, next year, I think.
But the Mr. Big card is this character can't be challenged by characters with 2 strength or greater. So he's a 4-cost 1/1 uninkable that quests for 3. And you think to yourself like, oh, that seems bad, right? And but in reality, the characters that cost 2 or less that are even going to be going near Gantu are none. They're just not there. So that ability is worthless. But when you look at Mr. Big, nothing bigger than him can touch him. It has to have 1 strength. That's it. And it's like, I guess technically Challenger gets around that. So Rafiki, who has 0 strength, can challenge, and then he gets this addition. Actually, I don't want to end up on wrong lever Department of Corrections segment. I believe, allegedly, that if you had Challenger with Rafiki, you could declare the change into Mr. Big, then get your +3 and take out the rat or shrew mole. I don't know exactly. But, it just, when you look at other cards around it, an 8 cost for 6/6/2 lore is just bad, right? Since your ability is worthless, it's overpriced, understated. It's especially compared to the more recent Gantu. I think that may be their apology. Maybe that's Ravensburger's apology to Gantu. Because the new Gantu is chef's kiss. Very good.
That's right.
All right. Well, thank you all.
Did you do your steel one?
Yeah, Lawrence.
Oh yeah, sorry, you started. My bad.
You're all good. No worries. Well, thank you everybody for writing us questions to the mayor. And as always, you can write questions in the comments below or join our Discord community and ask questions there in our Constituents Corner thread. We don't really have a main segment this week because, as you recall last week, we sent out a poll to everybody on who to vote for the villain of the set. But before we announce the villain of the set, we're going to go through and talk about all the villains we've had this week as we honor them. So, Brad, can you walk us through who are some of the villains we've had in the past?
I don't have them in order at the moment. I apologize, but
we don't need to have them in order.
All right, the most recent one we had John Silver, greedy treasure seeker. He came in a couple weeks ago because of the locations deck in Seattle. Before that, we had Ice Block. We had a lengthy discussion on how powerful that block of ice actually is. Diablo, devoted herald. I don't know why I always say devoted herald. Our first one this set was Daisy Duck. She had a lot of hype around her. Of course, we had Pete, games referee, Prince John. You've heard a lot about this these last 12 weeks with the Emerald Steel.
PJ?
PJ. While talking about the Emerald Steel, we also had the Ursula Deceiver, the one that snipes songs out of your hand, the 2 cost. And another villain of the week that we had was the entire Emerald Steel deck that Zanzad built and won Vegas with. So that was one as well. We had Lyle Tiberius Rourke, Merlin Rabbit. Who am I missing here? Prince Naveen, Clarabelle. And I think that about does it. For the last 12 weeks, those have been our villains of the week.
Yeah. And so, Brad, tell us with bating anticipation, who did the folks vote for as the villain of the set?
I want to thank everybody for voting. We had 27 votes, and with 8 of those votes, 29.6%, Izansed's Emerald Steel deck.
Yeah,
Let's
big
go.
surprise. It's so funny. I got on the call tonight to record this, and Brad was like, "Have you didn't vote?" And I was like, "I was just gonna let other folks vote." He's like, "Well, you never know; it might like narrow the gap." And so I did vote, but I was like, I already knew who's gonna win. It wasn't like Brad was like, "Do you want to know?" I was like, "No, I'm good. You don't have to tell me." But not a huge surprise that this was the winner. What was the runner-up? You said it like narrowed the victory.
It did. At 22.2% was Ice Block, actually, which surprised me.
Really? So
yeah,
that
a lot of
means
people hate
second,
that Ice
right?
Block. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I mean, Ice Block has had its thing, but I also think we have a special gift to give out.
We do. Let me go down the list real quick. With 4 votes, we had Diablo. He was next in line. Daisy Duck got 3 votes. Pete and Prince John both had 2. And then Merlin and Lyle each had 1, leaving John Silver, Prince Naveen, Ursula, and Clarabelle voteless, light on their hooves. But yeah, I have a wheel schedule. Everybody who voted between our Discord and the Google form, I have in a wheel here. I'm going to spin it live. And what you're going to get is this copy of Villainous with the promo Prince John card in it. And the card is spinning, or the wheel is spinning now, and it looks like it's landing on John K. Lowe from our Discord.
Let's go.
So, yeah.
Let's go.
But yeah, I got this copy of Villainous. It has the promo John's Prince John in it. My lighting in here is not good. This is from my copy of it. But yeah, thank you so much for voting, everybody. This is one of several things I want to give away over the course of time. And yeah, it was a lot of fun keeping up with this all week. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Brad. Congrats to John for winning and participating in this vote. So what do we think about this deck? We've talked about it a lot. We've talked about it on this podcast a lot. We've talked a lot about it in stores. It's been a subject of debate amongst the Lorcana community for weeks now, since Zan's victory in Las Vegas, and it had a resurgent victory of a modified version in Seattle. So yeah, do we think this is a worthy crown of the villain of the set?
I do.
Absolutely.
I think it's funny. We've been doing cards this entire podcast, and then the one time that we do a whole deck, it's so loathed, I guess, that everybody is like, yeah, that's absolutely the most villainous thing you guys have talked about. So congrats to Zan. It's cracked me up. And I was like, there's surely no way everybody's going to vote for a player and his deck. And I was proven wrong.
So question I have for both of you is do you think that this deck will remain a villain going into Azurite Sea?
I don't know.
I mean,
I really don't know.
It's certainly a bar. Right. It's certainly a bar that is set. Everything that gets built for Azurite Sea has to sort of respect what every other deck has already done. And obviously, Green Steel being one of the most powerful ones. So, Diablo is going to continue to, influence the meta quite a bit. I am curious to see if there's any sort of, there's always those decks that just don't care. Like they think they are the new, fancy deck on campus kind of thing. Like they're the cool one. Like they're just like, I'm gonna do my thing and you all have to respond to me. But it's hard to imagine that list existing. So I'm curious to see how it shapes up. I do. I have been doing a lot of testing with a lot of different decks, and so far, it's just kind of all over the place. There's a lot to work with, but I have found some things that I do enjoy a little more than others.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things we've always talked about in sets previously, especially when it came to Ruby Amethyst. We always is this the set that's going to break Ruby Amethyst? And every time Ruby Amethyst would still manage to kind of squeak its way in and still be a really successful deck. And it was still a really successful deck in Shimmering Skies less so than I think the two kind of key decks that we saw of Ruby Sapphire and Emerald Steel. But I think what really surprised us the most about Emerald Steel, maybe really shouldn't have, is that we knew how dominant it was with the Bucky discard package. So much so that Ravensburger stepped in and was like, whoa, we're not only going to like errata this card, we're going to nerf it to basically non-existence. And we kind of thought, okay, that's the end of that deck. That's not coming back. And not only did it came back with a vengeance, and arguably got considerably better with the tools it has. And honestly, looking at Zan's deck, you have it built, Andy. Like, how many cards did it get from Shimmering Skies?
Yeah, we went over this. This was another one probably for pull the lever. I think we got it wrong at the time, but I thought it was Muses and and Bruno.
Muses
but I don't
last
think
set.
This was the last set. Bruno was the last set.
Anna was a new one.
Anna, Pete. I think that might be it. The Cove was last set as well. It's
when you're trying to refer to the last set, you're referring to Ursula's Return.
Yeah. We haven't got Azurite Sea. I haven't cracked any packs yet. I'm just saying.
Listen, but here's the thing. I'm just saying, by the time this podcast goes out, the last set will be Shimmering Skies.
That's true. That is very true.
So, yeah, I think it's one of those things that it just goes to show you that decks you think might not be. And I ultimately think that's probably where we'll end up, at least in the early days of Azurite Sea, is we're going to see a lot of those aggro decks, as we always do in the early format. We'll see if they last longer than they do for the first couple weeks. They usually kind of fizzle out, except for they always seem to make a return in that first set championship and then again fizzle out yet again. But we'll see, are people just going to take the existing frameworks of decks that are out there, slot in a few tech cards? Are we going to see whole new deck archetypes that we haven't seen before, make it really successful into the top tables? And I think that's an interesting thing for us to see. But I do think in the context of Emerald Steel, I still think this is a good deck. And it's, I think Azurite Sea probably gives it legs to stand on for the future. And there's still I think significant questions about answers for the Diablo in particular. And especially when it goes to Cove, always the issue with Ward and Prince John. Certainly is deserving of being our villain of the set.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And with that, though, we do have a new segment we're gonna sneak preview, which is the Galactic Council Chamber. The court is now in session. Before us, gentlemen, the judges, Villain Andy, Villain Brad, and Chief Justice Villain Vince. We now get to decide, should this deck be banned or errataed? Brad.
Let's hear
Brad.
your arguments.
Should it be banned? No. I don't know what we're doing. I don't.
You don't know what we're doing. We talked about this beforehand.
I know. I'm trying to. The question. No, the question is, should the deck be banned? no, I don't think so. I just don't.
It's a binary choice.
Ban or errata, and you
ban
have
or
to
errata.
have a
and I have to do
reasoning with it.
Okay. So yeah, I'm treating it like it was a card for. Okay,
I'm sorry. It's a little tricky because it's an entire deck.
It's an entire deck, and that's what threw me off. Yeah.
We're not banning 60 cards, so errata. I think what would you do to stop this deck from continuing to be a menace, right?
Yeah. And I should explain to our listeners, just because Brad clearly doesn't understand the rules of the own game that we played here, which is that you get. Every week, we will now bring a card before the court to decide whether or not it should be errataed or banned, and we will need to make arguments for or against. And at the end, we will come up with a final judgment of the courts.
Okay. Then yeah, I'll lean into it and say yes, it should be, because it's not fun to play against. And the only way that I have fun playing against it is if I'm playing blue steel, and it, yeah, I'm having a hard time with it. Yeah, let's say it. Yeah, let's do it.
I think that it should just be fixed. I think several of the things we talked about would fix it. PJ could use some adjustment. My man, I like him. He's cool, but maybe he's taxing a little too much. Maybe we like dial down the taxes. Like maybe we only tax the people who have like more than X cards in hand, right? Like but I think the easy errata for this is just to like. I don't know. Honestly, I don't think this deck is going to continue to be the menace it could be. That may be a hot take here.
Hot take, Andy.
I think that like a lot of the decks I've been tinkering with, which tend to be more aggro oriented, they don't have a problem really dealing with the bird and green steel. I don't think green steel's gotten great tools that sort of fit into the very unique puzzle that has been built here with green steel. I'm not as smart as Zan and Luke and all of the people that built those lists, so I'm sure I'll be proven wrong. But I think if anything, the one card that might need an errata is Prince John, and I don't think we should take away his ward. I think it should be only while he's exerted.
Yeah, that is probably a better tech choice.
That would probably nerf him. Maybe it's like only if it's the first card, like you discard, draw off it or something. I don't know.
Yeah,
he could use a small.
Given the fact that we are just talking about the set 5 Emerald Steel deck, I agree with Brad that I think this deck is fundamentally unfun to play against. I also found that I tried to play it and it's unfun to play unless you are absolutely 100%
a sociopath.
A sociopath or,
mad.
And so it feels bad, honestly, playing it because it's like, I'm so sorry, I'm going to make you discard more of your cards. Yeah. It feels fundamentally bad.
You think Michael Jordan says, I'm sorry, right before he dunks on his opponent? You think Stephen Curry says, I'm sorry as he drains the 3 over his opponent?
That's different. That's a terrible analogy.
That's a terrible analogy. The proper analogy would be Michael Jordan going over to the scoreboard and deleting points from the opposing team, because that's what happens when you take the cards out. So no, that is a fundamentally wrong analogy. If I quest and I do some crazy things on the board that advance the game state, fine. But fundamentally, to put your opponent at a card disadvantage by just consistently kicking cards out of their hand so they can't do anything and they just basically watch you play the game is not fun.
First off, discarding is definitely not fun. I agree with that. It is also extremely strong, and the best way to win the game is make it so that your opponent can't play it. But 2, I have to defend Zan and his green steel list and all of the people who play it. This list is not just discard. It has a line and a time when the discard package that it has is needed and is utilized heavily, specifically against lists like red blue or blue steel. The more ramping decks, you need to just drain their hand entirely. However, this list compared to Bucky, like you said before, we've all said this, it's marketably better, it's stronger. I also think it is considerably more fun to play. It has a number of complex lines that can be taken. It has a number of decision trees that need to be made. The difference is that if you make the right decision, you win the game, right? Like you just win the game. There's not really like that next decision and that next one, and like
Well, I push back though on that discard. Yeah, it does have other lines of play, but I think about the like final match in Seattle, where it's like the line is like discard your opponent so they have no answers and they're top decking, and then you can go wide. Like that's basically the other play line in that deck, and so like discard is really critical to get to that point to be able to feel safe to play your characters, to leverage the board state to actually quest and stuff. So you can let your opponent get a little higher on the lore count, and then take control. And the way you take control in that deck is by discarding your opponent's hand, and then you play the board, advancing your board state to quest. And like, again, then your opponent just sits there and can't do anything. Like they're top decking and they're hoping for like a prayer of something to deal with your board to like get back into place. And that's not a great place to be in playing. So yeah, it's not nearly as bad as the discard package with Bucky and stuff where you are just watching the game, but you're still in a pretty hopeless position a lot of times against this deck.
You're right. You're in a hopeless position. That's because this is the best deck in the game, and it's won. Diablo alone has won 4 out of the last 5 DLCs, and since its release, and it is incredibly strong. But I also I think a lot of people sleep on how much of this deck locks you out of the game in ways that aren't discard, because there are a lot of discard, but if you don't have that Prince John, then your sudden chills are useless. If you don't have that Prince John, your hypnotizes feel worse, right? But no matter what, you shift that Diablo and you then sing Storm and you draw an extra card and you take out the only threat they have on the board, and then you play the Cove and you follow it up the next turn with a Pete, and it's the fact that you continually play threat after threat after threat that also removes their threats, that they just they're locked out of the game. They don't have to discard their entire hand. You could also just remove everything they play. That happens too.
That's true. All right, so final judgment. Judge Brad, Villain Brad, ban or errata?
I am convinced by Villain Andy's argument that it can be errated.
You heard it here first. Andy. Brad says that Zan Syed specifically should be banned from Lorcana forever. No, what?
What is what?
Judge Andy, Villain Andy, ban or errata?
We'll errata it.
We'll errata it. Well, my vote doesn't matter, but I would have voted to ban. The judgment of this court is the deck will be errataed. Court has been adjourned.
Hey. Sorry I ruined your bit, guys.
No, it's okay. Fine. We kind of ruined our own bit by having an entire deck as the villain of the week.
Yeah. It wasn't exactly
this bit will go much better in the future when there is, a singular card.
Also, did help that I didn't explain it after the get-go. That was probably a misstep. All good. A lot of things for pulled the wrong lever.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
All right. Well, with that, if you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Give us a like and subscribe on YouTube, and be sure to hit that bell icon to be notified of our next episode. Join us on our Discord to help continue plotting our devious plans. You can also ask the villains questions, as always, by commenting on YouTube down below or tagging us on Twitter at Rules of Villainy, or on Blue Sky at Rules of Villainy, or in our Discord. Until next week, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember the rules of villainy.